He never had his day in court, you know, and it's like us. We never have our day in court. Our day in court is right here, telling the truth right here in this form, what we're in. But he never had his day in court, and he told the truth, and they never believed him. And when he was exonerated, just a great day that day to have that decision come out and exonerate our leader, Chief Leschi.
Before he passed away and hung, he was expressing that we hang on to our old ways, hang on to our traditional ways, keep the language, keep our relationship with other families, other tribes, Yakimas, Cowlitz, Quinaults, Chinooks up the Columbia River, Lummis where you're from, the Puyallups, the Quamish, and keep that relationship. Keep fishing, keep hunting, keep using herbs, keep ceremonies alive, sweat lodges, longhouses, all those things. But the most important thing, he says, when he's leaving, he says, no fighting and arguing while I'm gone. And he specifically said, I'll always be with you. The most important thing is that we have each other. We got to remember that our relationship with the land and with each other is far more important than anything else. It's the key element of everything. I believe that. And I don't know of anything better. I think it's a very gifted thing.
Look at the life that's around us. The life in this creative ground that we live in, this sacred land that we're on. You know, everything talks to us. Everything that we have on this river and this watershed talks to us. That mountain is talking to us all the time. That mountain is telling us all the time of who we are and how we respect that mountain and how we respect these trees and all these animals and how we respect our eagles. That was all Leschi's thought. That was all his thought. It was him that was bringing us to that point in life. He's here. We're implementing the Leschi story. We're implementing the Leschi dream of protecting us. They ain't going to never terminate us. They can't. We're who we are. We're Nisqually people, you know, and we are here, and nobody's going to take us away from this land.
Natsiam Siaya, Sohila Quinisanatacho. That was from the documentary on my YouTube channel, Leschi, the Man, the Warrior, Our Chief, made by 3 Nisqually youth, several Nisqually community members, and Councilwoman Maui Squally helped create this 24-minute documentary with the American Indian Film Institute. Again, you can catch the whole episode, Leschi, the Man, the Warrior, Our Chief, on YouTube. Siam Siaya, Sohila Quinisanatacho, Tikaya, Siam and Estalacha, Salkadab, Sanasnat. Welcome to Lummi Elders Speak, where we share life teachings and stories from our Clactomish elders of the Pacific Northwest. Today is Thursday, March 17th, 2022. We're here every Wednesday featuring a new Lummi elder. We're here to listen, learn, and remember like in the olden days. Our guest tonight is Se-Sealth, Jewell James, who witnessed Uncle Billy Frank Jr. As they fought the Indian Wars, fought to protect treaty rights and sovereignty. And good to see you, Jewell. Last week we had Billy Frank Jr. Day. And Uncle Billy, as you know, arrested 54, 56 times. And a lot of people don't know who Billy Frank Jr. was. Se-Sealth, do you mind sharing the Billy Frank Jr. that you know?
Well, the thing about Billy Frank is that once you got to meet him, you just felt good about yourself because he was so encouraging to everybody that walked up, introduced himself, and shook hands with the man. He was a solid person. He was a solid man. He was a strong leader. Yeah, and he came from a long line of activism from a tribe that really cared about who they were, the Nisqually. When I think of Billy, I think about the injustice of Chief Leschi. He stood up because they didn't want to give the Nisqually people a reservation that they could live on. Isaac Stevens was cheating in Nisqually and tried to get away with it. And as a consequence, it led to war. When Leschi only sought to defend his rights as a human being, as a Native person, as an indigenous people. And what do you think about the state, the territory? That was we're talking about territory. We're talking about the 1850s. And then for the next 80 to 100 years, the state continued to practice great injustices against the Native people. If you look up his life, you see that Billy Frank was born in 1931. That made him 2 years older than my mother, or younger than my mother, and 4 years younger than my father. And so he was of my parents' generation. He was of your parents' generation. The late Vernon Lane and your mom, Nancy, they all knew him. Billy Frank came to Lummi frequently, along with Vine Deloria and the late Joe Dela Cruz. And they'd come up and meet with Forrest Kinley and Dutch Kinley and, our tribal leaders. They knew who he was. They knew what he represented. And they were always proud to have the man walk into Lummi and meet with them, encourage them. They worked really close. When I just was a young college graduate, I came home, got on the tribal council, but I started working in tribal rights. I had participated in various protests, and I never really got to be on the water with Billy. He has a legacy of, as you said, arrested 50 to 56 times. The first time he got arrested was 1945 as a 14-year-old boy exercising his fishing rights on the Nisqually River. And the state continued to try to persecute and prosecute the Nisqually people, the Puyallup people, the Muckleshoot people, all the people of all the rivers up and down Puget Sound waters. The state tried to force us to stay on the reservation. And, they passed laws that made it illegal. And Billy fought against those. A lot of our young people are fishermen today. And, the fish are seriously depleted. It's not like it was even when we grew up. And we don't have as many fish as when our grandparents fished and their great-grandparents. And if we go back 7 generations, then that would be the time where every stream, every creek, every river was chock full of salmon. It's because we had a culture-based spirituality that respected the salmon. And that created a love for this way of life. And I think Billy really reflected the love of the way our people fished and the way they respected the river, the waters, the salmon. And I was a young tribal vice chairman back in 1979, and the tribe sent me back to Washington, D.C. to lobby Congress and testify. And myself and Bobby Whitener from Squaxin Island. Bobby was new to Squaxin Island. He was a young tribal leader, got on their council as well. And Bobby and I hooked up with Joe Dela Cruz and Billy Frank. And they knew that as council members, we didn't know anything. We didn't know how to testify in front of Congress. We didn't know how to lobby congressmen. And so Joe said he'll take Bobby Whitener, and Billy took me. And we headed over to the Senate where Joe and Bobby started lobbying the House of Representatives. While we were going over that way, Billy had to stop. I never really seen Billy with carrying a briefcase often. But that day he was carrying a briefcase. And we were going on through the tunnels underneath the way between the Congress that goes from the House to the Senate buildings. And we stopped. There's a kind of a fountain down there, and we sat at the fountain. And Billy opened up his briefcase, and I couldn't help but notice this beautiful, this picture of this really beautiful Native girl. And I told Billy, I said, "Wow, that is one beautiful Native girl, Billy. Who was that?" Then he started crying. He cried really hard. And I wish I didn't say anything, but after he got done crying, I guess he just lost her. That was his daughter. And she was coming back from the P&E, and they got in their car. A drunk person crossed the middle of the freeway and hit her and his grandson head on. And so he lost them. And that was, we sat there a long time. You know, and Billy understood what it takes to be a father, a tribal leader, an environmental activist, a treaty rights activist. I started representing and fighting for Lummi as a local, regional, national, and eventually international treaty rights advocate as well, being highly influenced by people like Billy and Joe Dela Cruz and Forrest Kinley and, Sam Kagi and others. Yeah, Vernon Lane. There are a lot of strong tribal leaders that were all of that generation. Yeah, and I feel really fortunate to have gotten to know them. When I lost my kids, I lost two children 7 years apart. And each time Billy came up and sat with me. He knew, he understood. And I really, really appreciated him coming and spending that time sitting with me, getting me through it. You never really overcome that. And it's those moments I understood why Billy cried. I deeply loved and respected the man. And we're indebted to him. We're indebted to the people of Nisqually and the Puyallup and the Muckleshoots, all those that fished upon those rivers and decided to keep on fishing throughout the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Those battles led to USV Washington. And if we didn't, if they didn't move forward and be willing to get arrested, we wouldn't have had USV Washington. As a kid, I know we used to fish in Bellingham Bay here and rush back to the res every time we saw a boat coming towards us. We were afraid the state was coming over to seize our boat and seize our net and seize our fish. We had to stay within an imaginary line. So, yeah, that was all over the state. We, as individual tribes, we've all have elders that have battled for our rights. USV Washington wasn't the first case. I mean, we got the Alaska Packers case going back 130 years. You got the Winans case. The Columbia River tribes. They're fighting down there too. They're getting arrested. And they have major court cases where they also were involved in USV Washington arguments and defense of our treaty rights. All of our treaties were similar. almost exactly the same. And that allowed us as the Northwest, what became the Northwest City Fisheries Commission. Billy was so loved and respected by his peers, they made him chairman. He represented the people that suffered, and he wasn't college educated. He didn't go to law school or get a master's or a PhD, but he was extremely intelligent, and he is ruled by common sense, and he understood right from wrong, and because of that, because of his common sense and his understanding of what's right and what's wrong, I think he seriously reflected the spirit of Leschi, the spirit of what we think of as the Nisqually people. They really, those two men, I think, stand to be the shining examples of the type of heroes we need to remember. I think Billy would agree. He always say it wasn't just him. I mentioned Joe Delacruz. He was there too. Those men walked hand in hand, damn near. They're true warriors. And Guy McVines from Quinault. All those people that are gone. Hank Adams. These people that work together. Dutch Kinley. And even Larry Kinley from Lummi got to work with them closely. And we're involved in helping form the Constitution of the Northwest Indian Fish Commission, and we helped design its amendments when it was up for amendment. But it was because we wanted to have a system that really reflected what those men stood for. They believed each tribe had a right to be at the table, small tribe or big tribe. You had a right to be at that table. You had the right to represent your river, to represent your fish. You had the right to speak your concerns and advocate who your people are and what they wanted for their future. And Billy was an environmental activist. He wanted clean water. He wanted the rivers to flow with a lot of water. He wanted those dams removed. He was going up and down the coast. He was concerned about the dead zones in Puget Sound, the Walge, along the Pacific coast, all the way up to Alaska. There's areas where there's no oxygen in the water. And when our fish on their way home go through it, or our fish when they're just fingerlings heading out, if they go through those dead zones, it kills them. He wanted to find a solution to the dead zones. He wanted to find a solution to making sure tribes had their water rights. Not just agricultural-based water rights, but a formula that made sure that we had flowing river waters. And so there's so much, the man was really complex, really, but he was easy speaking. He was kind. He was considerate. He was gentle to everybody. He was encouraging to everybody, and I always loved it when he said, "Oh, you Injuns, you Injuns," and he'd laugh, and but he was a great soul, great spirit. Yeah, and I think we have to really work together as tribes, and I think we need to sit down and we got to identify all of our heroes that helped to get us to where we are. Each tribe should have them posted on their wall. You should be, Billy's an important figure for intertribal, but that's an example of what we should be doing at home too. Our tribal leaders, they've been out there battling, and a lot of times you don't appreciate your own people, and so a lot of our tribal leaders had traveled with Billy and lobbied with Billy and spent a week, 2 weeks at a time with Billy or longer. I know they really worked together. The late Dutch and Moult really worked with Billy a lot when they were going through the USV Washington. There was a lot of research. They had to identify people that would testify and had to bring in experts. There was a lot of coordination, a lot of strategy. We had to raise funds. We had to find lawyers, and Those leaders did that. They did that for us. They didn't have pay. They weren't paid. We didn't have income for the tribes then. As small tribes of Western Washington, we didn't have great industries. We didn't have great agricultural or timber. We didn't have resources that we could build an economy on, that we can encourage our children as Native people, saying that you can develop all the skills you need and live off this great resources, because we're small resource reservations. The reason is because we love the water, the bay, the water, the fish. We planned on being always living off the fish. We're a fish people, and that's one of the things that Billy would say. We're fish people, and that's an important idea that we have to keep alive. Even though right now we're suffering because hardly any fish are coming back, we have to keep that alive. We are fish people. We are salmon people. We are canoe people. We are cedar people. And I know the man. He loved our culture. He loved our encouraging others to do what they got to do in order to be the engine. And we have to appreciate all those personalities that walked and talked with you during those protest years. And he wasn't alone. And it's a shame that we don't have all those people listed. They should be all in the book of Northwest activists that fought and battled for the different parts of our rights here in the Pacific Northwest. And Billy Frank could be the cover, but it's the people he worked with. That's the people that would be in those books. That book with him, the people that he worked with. And that's who he was. He cooperated. He participated. He worked with others. And he had, the man himself has had many, many awards. He's got a presidential award the year after he died. And it's the highest civic award that could be issued to a civilian. But there's a lot of awards that we don't know what they are. We don't tell our kids how many awards he has, or what those awards are, and what they mean, and why they're significant, and why did he earn them. Those type of things are important for the next generation coming up behind us. Otherwise they're not going to know. They're not going to. They won't have any memory, because all this happened before them. And if we don't keep the memory alive, then we're going to repeat the mistakes of the past. And in the past we got weak. We became weak. But it's men like Billy Frank that made us strong, that dared us to stand up, dared us to take a risk. When we're doing the IRS campaign and fighting, those men were there. They were encouraging us. I was just a young buck on a national trail, arguing in the Senate and the House, and lobbying churches and environmental groups. And those men like Billy Frank and others, they were there to keep encouraging, checking on us, making sure we're doing the right thing, that we're going in the right direction. And it led to our victories. We worked together to defend a steelhead, and we worked together on the barbless hook campaign, because so many Chinook salmon were being destroyed by the for lack of barbless hooks being used. But the thing is that Billy stood for the wild salmon, but he understood the need for this hatchery salmon as well. And he respected the tribes, whether they took a position of defending the wild stocks of their river, or if they wanted to co-produce hatchery stocks as well. He recognized that was a tribal right, that was a tribal decision. And the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission that he was chairman of wasn't there to dictate to anybody. It wasn't there to act in a superior capacity to everybody. It was there to help all of us become co-managers. That was his dream, and I know he had people like Jim Heckman, who they recruited early, and helped who became the executive director, that worked with Billy. You know, and the staff of the Northwest Fisheries Commission, they were there to make sure that he had the information, the facts, and that he had the appointments set up, and they helped make the man. You know, and that's the way Billy was. He knew that he had a lot of confident and competent people behind him, and he never ever tried to just keep the light on himself. The light just happened to hit him all the time because he was defending all of us. He was representing us, you know, and that's how I think about Billy. And you know, I think we all cried. All of us that know him. Yeah, I cried for some of these tribal leaders that we lost in the Northwest. Had to go to the mountains because if you see them in action, you would have known just how powerful they were, how important they were. And I'll never stop crying for the man. You know, he's one of those souls that had a big impact on all of us. And he deserves to be remembered. You know, not just him, but also all those men and women leaders that walked and talked with him, that have gone on. It's okay they went on, but it's not right that we forget them, because he was never alone. He always had the people with him. So that's who I know. You know, and I wish I was kind of like Stan Jones. You know, Stan Jones, he kept a note. Him and Bernie Goldman, they kept notes at every meeting. Yeah, I used to think there's Stan writing history according to Stan. I think if we all did that, we would have been a lot richer. You know, because those debates led to changes in the law. Those debates led to court cases that we won. You know, and it's all based on the idea that that Billy and those guys, they believed in our treaty rights. And they made it acceptable for us to believe in the treaty rights. They gave us permission to fight for our rights. They gave us permission to stand up. Not just gave us permission, they showed us how to do it. How to walk with pride, how to believe in your own power, that you can make a difference. You know, they're role models. They showed us the pace, you know, and I asked Joe, you know, him and Billy were back in D.C. and they were just going, meeting. I said, don't you get tired, Joe? And he goes, no, you just learned to wolf nap. You know, 7 minutes sleep here, 7 minutes sleep there. He goes, in between all this, it kind of keeps you going, you know, but, you know, they just kept going like that, you know. Seemed like their battery never went low. But it took its toll. We lost him too early. We lost both of those guys and others like them too early. When we really think about it, those people that when we were in our 20s, we thought they were elders. They were really young people yet. They weren't that old, you know. And they should have all lived to be as old as Billy Frank's dad. You know, that would have been great. You know, 105 years old. And if we can keep our leaders that long, then we're fortunate, but we should learn to appreciate them while they're here.
I couldn't agree with you more, Se-Sealth. If you're just joining us, this is Lummi Elders Speak for March 22nd. Our guest here is Se-Sealth, younger than Seattle, giving us some life teachings and sharing a little bit of history about Uncle Billy Frank Jr. We all know him, and just thank you for that. Our memories are very long of those great warriors that we're so fortunate to have witnessed them in our lifetime. Jewell, what talking about the Indian Wars and what you fought for all your life, ever since you got on council, vice chairman, we were burning boats and fighting the IRS and taxation. I mean, these were knockdown dragouts, and these days it just seems like I mean, we just have so many lobbyists that really don't fight for, like how Uncle Billy, how you, when you worked in the Sovereignty and Treaty Protection Office, but Jewell, what's the most important? Our Clackamas people, our Treaty of 1855, Point Elliott treaty members, what is that important message that we got to get across to them about sovereignty and treaty protection? What's the what do they need to know?
Well, first of all, when you're back there and you're lobbying Congress, senators or representatives, it's really different when you're in there as a Native American lobbying on behalf of Indian country. Billy and his peers, they helped set the pace. They were there. They helped start the battle for self-determination, and that led to self-government. But they're there to go speak on behalf of Indian country in front of the committees. Before, we always had the BIA or the Commissioner of Indian Affairs out there speaking for us, to the congressmen representing us, and the congressmen, they don't listen as hard, I think, when it's a lobbyist or a lawyer being paid to go there and say a few things. They like to hear the real person, and Billy was a real person. Joe was a real person. All those advocates, those tribal leaders that would go back to DC and work together and go to all those offices, they themselves, as tribal people, knew the facts. They knew the laws. They knew the politics, and they advocated to the best of their ability what was right, and they led to changes in law because they personally were involved in it. So I know we have a lot of tribes that have not learned as tribal leaders to do the lobbying themselves. They hire major lobbyists and law firms, and lobbyists and law firms have their place. They have a role to play. I'm not putting them down. They have a great role and a great value to our future of our sovereignty and our treaty rights. But we also have a duty to represent our people. And I think that's what Billy and the people like him had taught us. Stand up for your people. Don't be afraid. You speak for them, because you have a heart. You have the heart of the people. And you're not just intellectualizing. See, that's the difference when you hire somebody from outside. They don't have the emotional connection to the people, to the environment, to the cause, to the rights. They don't have an emotional connection to the history and the injustices. They didn't suffer the pain, and so it's different when you have tribal people that know that if you fail, your people are going to hurt, and that's one of the reasons why every now and then I would stand up and say at some of the national meetings, remember who you represent. Women and children and elders are dying back home. You're not here just to be silent, to let the federal government talk down to you. And I used to get upset because I believed that Billy and others like him were telling us, you have the right to stand up and speak out. You have the right to encourage others to stand up and speak out. That's what they did for us, and we fought really hard to teach how the U.S. Constitution kept Native American sovereignty separate from the states and the federal government. I had the IRS come after me quite a lot because I fought for the treaty rights of our people to be tax exempt. And I'm really proud that Lummi had me come home from law school and take over and create the Lummi Treaty Protection Task Force. By representing the Lummi Nation on that Treaty Task Force, I was able to go out there and with confidence, stand and talk with people like Billy and Joe and all the other regional and national leaders that I had a people that believed I'm out there doing good for them. And that's the way we always thought about Billy, is that we know he's doing good for us. He's not there to sell us out. He's not there to he would never sell us out. He'd never sacrifice our rights. We knew that. He stood up for all of us. We all had to benefit from the decision, and I think that's the most powerful thing a tribal leader can learn from men like that. But I don't think the lobbyists and the lawyers have the same investment. They don't have the same heart. They don't have this same emotional and spiritual connection to the history of our campaigns, whether it's treaty rights or sovereignty. And I'm proud of the role we played on moving towards from self-determination to self-government, to even getting the UN Declaration on Rights of Indigenous Peoples through the administration and approved here in the United States. And that's because when you're influenced by men like that, you realize that you can stand up against the federal government and with confidence speak out. And if you have to have faith, you have to have belief. Yeah, you have to believe that your people have a right to exist. They have a right to their own form of spiritual understandings. They have the right to their own culture, their songs, dances, ceremonies. And I think that's a part of the good thing about Indian country is that when gathered, the host tribe always puts on a good cultural sharing to show to each and every one of us that we still have cultural integrity. We are still a spirit-based people. That's why I think if we want to defend treaty rights and sovereignty, the upcoming leaders need to study the law. They need to study the political system. They need to study the history of their people. They're not going to be able to experience it. History to them is something way back now, and there's been a lot of changes in Indian country because of this united front that we have created as leaders in the Pacific Northwest, all the way across the nation. And that's one thing about our Pacific Northwest leaders is that we have a good influence on our national platform as well. When we go to affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians, Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission, and Columbia River tribes, when those organizations would go and participate, and all their member tribes go and participate in National Congress of American Indians, they help move planks of the platform that we need to develop politically for Indian country so that we all are defending our treaty rights and our sovereignty together. I know when we were getting the treaty rights language through the House of Representatives, this is, a lot of kids today weren't even born when we were doing this battle, and when we did that, we got a call on a Saturday from the lawyer for the House Ways and Means Committee, and he was telling us the chairman, who's I don't think he's alive now, but the chairman who opposed our Indian language, and after our major protests, where we had almost every major newspaper, television station, and radio station talking about the injustice of the attack by the IRS upon Native American treaty fishing rights in the Pacific Northwest and the Great Lakes areas, and down all the way as far as California, that he had to consider the language. And they called and they wanted us to sacrifice all the other tribes' rights. They wanted us to agree to language that said no other tribe can come to Congress and argue the treaty argument. And GI and I told them, well, we'll have to get back to you. And we hung up and we laughed our asses off, really, because there's no way we could represent Joe De La Cruz and Billy Frank on the Quinault Treaty or the Nisqually Treaty or the Yakima Nation on the Yakima Treaty or any of those tribes or the Sioux. The Sioux Nation would go to war against us if we agreed to language that compromised their treaty rights. And so after we kind of laughed because we thought it was hysterical that they thought we would surrender the rights of tribes. That was beyond us. We're here for our people. We're not representing their people. These other tribes, they're all sovereign nations. So we called them back. We said, well, all those treaties that you negotiate with all those tribes have to renegotiated if you're going to amend them, and you have to go back to those tribes to get them to agree because we can't agree for them. And so if you can kill the language because there's no way we can accept that type of compromise. And so, of course, we were afraid they might be able to kill the language, but we prevailed. We had enough national support to get the language through the way we wanted it, clear and concise and strong for the tribes. But I tell you, man, if we didn't have people like Joe and Billy and Guy and others that are out there, or Hank and others that are already led the way for us, we wouldn't have been so confident. But we're surrounded by older tribal leaders that were competent, and competent, and they weren't afraid, so why should we be afraid to take on the government, and I remember I was, when I thought about how many times Billy was arrested, I remember I thought about that, when I was at a university and I was giving a lecture on Native American sovereignty and the U.S. Constitution and the rights of Native American tribes to not be taxed by the country. And after I was done, these two FBI agents came up and showed me their badges. And they said, Jewell James? I go, yeah. And they were FBI. And I said, oh, shit. And they go, no, come down. We're not here to arrest you. We're sent here to tell you that we closed the file on you. And I go, yeah, right. I mean, right. I thought, man, they probably still have Billy Frank's file open, trying to figure out how he pulled off all that stuff, right? To that, and they never closed the files on Indian country. They tried to punish us by arresting Leonard Peltier and making him the bad Indian, and he suffered for us, and so those leaders that have been, the federal government's gone after, to try to teach all of us a lesson. They've done this time and time again, and we have to know that history, and we have to really believe in who we are as a people. What are our rights as a people? And that's the spirit of Billy Frank and all of his peers. Don't forget your people. Don't forget who you represent. Don't be afraid to speak out. So yeah, sovereignty. At one time we had the president ready to accept our position on Indians in the Constitution. But, not all of our leaders that are on our councils understand the U.S. Constitution and how much work it took to get that far, where the White House, the president, and the vice president were ready to move forward with us. They just step back. I think it's because there's a lot of jealousy, and they don't like it when you have big connections and are successful, and Joe and Billy and others, we all used to laugh, the late Freddie Lane and others. We'd all used to have a good time talking about the need for the Errol Shirt Award, and the Errol Shirt Award is where you have it's a new ribbon shirt. And in front, you have the bullet cases dangling down where your ribbons would be. And in the back, you would have arrows dangling down, because when you're out there representing Indian country, the cowboys are shooting you in the front and your own Indian people are shooting you in the back. When you get home, they want to recall you. Where you been? Who do you think you are being out there? Defending us type of thing, and there's just so many people that are bitter. They don't have a great vision, a big vision, and you have to have a big vision of who you are and who we are in Indian country and how we're all united, how we're all seeking to protect sovereignty. That's what these men were. That's what they represented, and they represented the big picture, and we do it in injustice and we don't get more in depth into who they were and why they were successful in representing us and speaking for us. What did they believe? That's what the next generation needs to know. What did they believe? Because what they believed is what they acted upon. They turned their beliefs into actions. Those actions won us political and legal battles. They want us the right to coexist in the world with other cultures and other peoples. That we have rights too. And after 150 years of battling for the treaty rights, they're willing to set the trail on fire if need be. And that's why I say that's the spirit of the Nisqually that Billy represented, the spirit of the river, the spirit of Chief Leshai. Never give up, and in defense of Chief Leshai, even though they illegally hung him, he won. Those tribes got bigger reservations, and that's what he wanted, was a place of access to the river, access to the fish, and that's what Billy wanted. It's the same thing. They were just 100 years apart, but they never gave up, and because of that, we're all richer for it.
We definitely are. We owe a, we have to always remember our ancestors, even our elder ancestors that were here with us and are no longer with us. But I recall our beloved chief, he always reminded me that they're always here, helping us, guiding us. With Scally Chuktanat, Tokatai, Lolita, that's being held down in the Miami Sequarium. That's always the issue that comes up with our important fight, because they took those killer whales they took those Quahomishtin without permission from the indigenous people. One of the questions from one of our viewers was, is that a treaty right? When she was stolen, and did we even know, or did they ask even permission? Was her question.
Well, of course not. They never asked permission, and we have the treaty right to have our territory and all those spiritual beings that live within our territory protected. But it was the time of termination, and we were battling to become strong leaders. When you're battling to just survive, it's hard for you to see everything that's happening within your territory. And when that whale was brought to our attention, we're proud of the fact that the Lummi Nation was willing to send us down to try to bring her home. And we've had a couple of national journeys, and we had people fly in and out down to Florida. And we weren't allowed to go in, but we stood outside and we sang prayers, to strengthen her. And we know that she sings her family song, and She sings out calling for help. And we're hoping that our song and our prayers would reach her to encourage her, you know, and you never know the way of the Spirit. I'd like to believe that when all the people that really care about her join together, that we had an influence, you know, and yeah, the aquarium was sold out and a new company owns Aquarium, but they didn't get a permit to force her to dance for the people anymore. And that's what it was. I mean, she's held in captivity, and it's all about profit. For 50 years, she performed and made the money. And they just want to milk her dry until she dies. You know, it's all about money, 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 money. You know, and they should be proud that she performed for 50 years and let her go, give her freedom. You know, and people say it's like Free Willy. You know, and a movie is made about Free Willy. Well, same thing. We'd have to find ways not only to have her given her freedom, but to make sure that she has a sanctuary where she can readapt to the Pacific Northwest waters. You know, our killer whales weren't made to be down there in tropical Florida in that warm water, in that small pool that she's in, that shallow pool. You know, and it might be deep to a human, but it's real shallow to a whale. You know, and we have to remember, you know, her peers committed suicide rather than live in captivity. Whales committed suicide rather than live in captivity. I was just talking to Dr. Russo and my brother, telling them, I said, we better think about bringing that whale, carved whale, back and put it back in front of this aquarium and tell them, look, we're back. We want our whale release. You know, take this as a small token. But we're going to continue in our campaign to ask for a release. She should come home. You know, they always say, oh, she'll die. She'll get sick. You know, and let her be home with her family. Let her be home with her mother. You know, it's too late for her to be home with her grandmother. But for the viewing audience, you know, we're talking about somebody's child. You know, and you don't think of her that way. Maybe you never thought of her that way. But you don't know everything. You don't know what God intended, what God endowed everything with. You know, and we like to believe that the Spirit's in all things, that we live in a spiritual environment. And it's up to us as a people to recognize that. We're not the only ones. You know, and the whale has a right to come home. It's a being that sings. And it's up to us to help her sing her song and bring her home. So I'd like to, you know, when we're on that totem pole journey with the whale, and when we went on this last journey with the pole, we had that little boy, Caden. When we were over at Village Point, he sang a song that came to him. He said it was his whale song. And when he got done singing, we left. And the whales came in. We left before they got there. We don't know how far they came from, but that's what that little 4-year-old was saying. You know, and then we went up to Birch Bay. And we put him up, gave him the mic, and he sang his little whale song again. And those whales came into Birch Bay. You know, and that little 4-year-old believed. You know, that's how old the whale was when she was taken, 4 years old. She was the same age as Caden, that little boy. And he sang that song for her. You know, and it's the power of belief. It's the way you're raised. You know, and I always have a little dismay because, you know, when the churches issued their apology of churches, they always said that they're going to do something. And after 87 to 97 and 2007, they didn't renew it in 2017. But that apology of churches, you know, when they said what I thought about it, I said, you didn't do anything. You just continued with your missionizing, and you just tried to convert us. That's all. Tried to come in and get us to believe in your way. But what you should have done is you should begin every sermon with some simple words. Every church should have said, God created all things. All things are sacred. That's all they had to do for the last 30, 40 years. And this new generation would have believed much stronger that we live in a world created by God. They would have heard it every Sunday, every sermon. It only takes 30 seconds, 20 seconds to say that. But you repeat it enough and people will begin to live it. That's what culture is about. Religion's a part of our culture. Spirituality is a part of our culture. Belief is a part of our culture. It's living it, walking and talking it in unity with others. So I think we have to continue to try to unify all those people and organizations that would like to see her given her freedom. This pandemic disrupted everything. And I don't think we have the tribal leaders that care right now about following up on it. I'm a little worried about. They're just worried about the next thing. Something from 5 minutes from now, or something 5 minutes ago. They don't have that long-term memory and long-term commitment. Those long-term plans. And everything has a way of influencing who we believe we are. And when we win a battle, it sets the pace for future generations to believe you can win the next battle. It's kind of like that torch in the Olympics when they're running it around and handing it off. Pass the torch on. We have to unify and believe that we're given enough power of persuasion and commitment and encouragement to complete the campaign. That's, as the late chief said, that's our relative. Bring her home.
It seems like our you had the torch there for a long while, taking us into the 20s, I guess we could start calling them the early 20s. And it was really sad how the tribe council had let you go. And I've always been a supporter and always appreciated the work that you've done. And I know I could speak for a lot of people. A lot of people were a little bit worried about that the health there. How you been doing? Since the Red Road to DC. I know a lot of people were asking about your health and if you're going to get your surgery anytime soon. Do you want to share just a little update with your family and friends online?
No, I never had the surgery. I still have the problem. And I don't have a surgery date set. I call and I don't get responses. And we have people that will argue for me at the committee level at the hospital to make sure I can get in there. But I'm carving totem poles and getting ready for a totem pole journey in May to call for the removal of the dams on the Columbia River. And so I'm kind of really focusing on getting these new pieces done in time for the journey. And I still have the physical problem, but a couple things. I mean, I'm getting my diet under control so that I don't have as much acid leaking out and eating the skin away. But you also learn to live with the pain, and you got to learn to limit how much you do every day, and so that's just kind of where I'm at. I like to believe the it probably happened for a reason. You know, maybe I needed to learn something. I just don't know what God wants me to learn yet. But that's the place. But you know, I mean, like one day I was really pitying myself. God, I was in a lot of pain, and I was just so frustrated. I went and sat on the porch, and a little hummingbird sat there, hovered at my ear. Longest time. I said, "I'll be down." Just when you want to give up, little little signs, you know, they mean something. You know, and so I use that Native American medicine that Joni Siegel sent up. Man, it's awesome. If you suffer skin loss, this stuff will get your first layer of skin back on overnight. You know, and it's when you lose skin, that's where the pain comes from. You know, but if you get that first superficial layer of skin back on, the pain goes away, and that stuff is awesome. You know, I mean, I apply it. I might be in pain during the night, but by morning it's all gone because that first layer of skin came back. You know, lose it, rebuild it, lose it, rebuild it, rebuild it. I've been doing that for I don't know, 9 months, 10 months.
Since the journey, right?
Yeah, 9 months, I guess, going on 9 months. So
yeah, when you talk about the coming totem pole journey, I know I haven't heard much about it, but do you want to explain a little bit? Is that to the Snake River or?
Yeah, we're going to go down to University of Oregon first, Eugene, and then we have a gathering. We're down there for a couple of days, and then we have a gathering in Portland, and then we go to Celilo Falls, of course, and Yakima Nation and Umatilla, and then we leave the Columbia River and go up into the Snake River, you know, and we're going to be with the tribes up there, the Nez Perce and the Shoshone Bannock and the other tribes. Before we even go, Joe Day, the past chairman of Yakima Nation, is going to go a month ahead of us. I carved a 9-foot long Chinook salmon that he will take along with him. It's 9 foot long, 2 feet wide, 2 feet thick. And it's a salmon splashing through the shallows of the water. And it'll be all painted. And the reason we're sending it represents the what they call the hogs that used to be in the Columbia River. Those were 150-pound Chinook that used to be in the Columbia River. You know, and the dams killed them off. And of course, the fish, non-Indian fishing industry killed it off too. Killed off a lot of species in major runs. But if we can get the tribes united, working together, and as Joe Day believes, if they all really unite their spiritual beliefs together, then we can successfully remove those dams. But it's a campaign. I'm carving 8-foot whales for underneath the whale that we brought to Florida, because the whales are dependent on Columbia River, Snake River Chinook too, as a source of food. And we can restore the Chinook. We can help restore the salmon. I mean, the whale population that moves up and down the coast. You know, the south resident, north resident, and transient whale populations that move up and down the coast here. And so we're not just doing it for ourselves as human beings, but we're hoping that we can restore the population for our brothers and sisters in the whale nations. And so we're going to put those that whale on these 8-foot salmon that I'm carving now, and we'll retire the what I say is the ugly little sails I put under it. You know, we'll make them benches and give them to our fishermen down at their barbecue site. But yeah, it's going to be 2.5 weeks journey. and we're going to go 2,500 miles. And so even though it's considered a small journey, it's still 2,500 miles, and there's still several Indian nations working together, and Dr. Russo has raised the funds, and he's tried to keep it real limited as to how many people he'll take on the journey. Myself and my son, who's helping me with the art, and then recently my brother Doug said he'll go, and so Russo, and that's our original team participating. And I don't know how they're planning on media or anything like that. Haven't been privy to that because it's a Se-Sealth Foundation. Is that how Jay's foundation is pronounced?
Se-Sealth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's his group. Jay Julius and Dr. Russo have that nonprofit, and so they're operating and planning it through that group. And I think Joe Day is from Yakima Nation as a participant. So I'm getting informed. I met with them twice so far, and they told me what their plans. So I have the art done. I probably would have been had the third salmon almost roughed out today if it wasn't raining, but it was raining the last 2 days. So I work outside and then I move them inside. So once I've got to move them inside and dry them out because the rain hit, so I can paint them. But I got an 18-foot totem pole in there I have to pull out.
That'll be real exciting. I know a lot of people are ready to get past COVID. It's good to hear it's only 2,500 miles and not 25,000 miles like last year, huh?
23,500 miles on that journey, and all of them, you traveled every one of those miles, and I appreciate that, and God, it just killed me almost killed me to stay home. I was really thankful to your nephew, Dr. Lane, for helping me out during that when I was really under a lot of pain. The doctor was there helping. So we have a lot of people that care. They come forward and help. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Do you want to share some closing words, Jewell, about what a young person that might be witnessing the words and the knowledge, and anything that you'd like to share just as a Lummi elder as you speak, ACM?
Well, I think it's important that we have a lot of tribes, and we have a lot of tribal leaders, and we have a lot of tribal elders that were leaders, and those elders need to encourage the young people to stand up. They need to be given the permission to speak out on behalf of the people, but they also have to have common sense too, and a willingness to get the facts, study, never quit reading, never quit asking questions, never quit listening. Go to council meetings, go to elders, go to somebody that has some knowledge for you. And I know on one day I was at a funeral and an elder came up behind me. She said, "What's wrong, young man? Do you need permission to speak good words to your people? If so, then I give you permission. Stand up and talk to your people." And I felt empowered. And she said, "If anybody has a problem with that, you send them to me. I'll take care of them." And I absolutely believed her, and I felt empowered by her words. She was a strong advocate and spoke up quite a bit in the Lummi community. And, that means something. That's important, is that we have to figure out how we can encourage our young leaders to not sit back and be quiet. It doesn't mean being mouthy, but learn to study hard the facts and the history and the rights of your people, and how to work with tribal leaders, and how to represent the cause, how to bring it alive, so that you can share it in a way that other people are willing to become involved and engaged, and to participate and commit to supporting you. That's what our needs are based on, because when you consider the overall U.S. population, we're not very many. We're few. We've almost been totally exterminated. In 1910, they thought there was only like 200,000 Native Americans left. I mean, they've almost exterminated us. And it's up to us to find a way to survive, and how to groom and encourage the next generation of leaders. But believe in your spirituality. I'm lucky because we got Se-Sealth here at Lummi, and we got Shaker Church, and we got Sweat Lodge, and we also have people, the Peyote Church is here. I'm a member of the Peyote Church through the Navajo Nation, and believe in your spirituality, believe in your culture, learn some song, dances, and ceremonies that will give you a foundation. I was telling Reuben George that just when the pandemic hit, I was sending him a paper. I was saying, we have the way of the canoe, where people have the canoe journey, and a lot of people from the other races, black, yellow, and white, come and observe the Red Nations gathering on the canoe journey. But we need the way of the mask gatherings, because all people come from mask, red, black, white, and yellow. And we just create a giant 4-quadrant circle of the 4 colors. And everybody's encouraged to learn something about their indigenous history. Don't be afraid to wear a mask, as long as you study and bring the cultural knowledge a lot forward, and make it live through you, with you, and learn to share. That we need something to help people awaken and remember that they're indigenous to this world, this earth. We're from here, and we'll die off, and the world will go on without us. We might poison the earth, but she won't die. Not from not because we died off. The earth will live without us, and I think that's what the important point that we have to remember. Is we're all indigenous to the earth, and we all have teachings, and we all know that we have a responsibility. All of us have a responsibility. My daughter said it once when she was, I think she was 10 years old. I lectured her for 45 minutes on the history of religion and the battles amongst the religions of the world. And then I realized, wow, I'm sorry, I just kept talking. I don't even know if you understand me. My little girl goes, yeah, I understand you, Dad. I go, you do? How? She goes, well, it's like this. I said, you understand about the religious battles I told you about? She goes, yeah. I said, how? She goes, well, it's like a man standing on a side of a pyramid. His side is red, and he could only see his side. And he could see the top. God's at the top. Another man's on the other side. He could only see his side. His side is black. He can't see the other sides, and he sees God at the top. Another man, he's on the third side, and he's standing real close, and he can only see his side. His side is white, and he sees God at the top. Then there's a fourth man standing on his side, and he can only see his side. His side is yellow, and he sees God at the top. They all don't know they're looking at the same thing. I was so shocked. Oh my God, I pulled over. I was just totally blown away. I said, oh my God, I got a genius. I was so proud of her. And she started laughing. And she goes, oh, I got it out of a book. As a child, she understood it. And we all have to understand that. 4 sides to the sacred pyramid, and at the top is God. And we're all a part of the same construction of this world, and we consume spiritual things that were created. We're spiritual beings, and we have to believe that. Don't just believe you're a human. Believe you're a human being with a soul, with a spirit, with teachings. You know, Lummi says the worst thing you could ever say about a person is "awan schnup." You know, and that was so horrible, so horrible. That was the worst thing. You know, and it was so horrible you had to avert your eyes and look away. You just had pity for those people. Oh my God. You know, you want to know what they're saying? Oh, those poor people, they have no teachings. That was the worst thing you could say about another human being, is to say they have no teachings. You know, and it was so shameful. Yeah, you whispered it if you did have to say it, but you should have even said it. That's how shameful that idea was. You know, because we know everybody has some teachings. We just need to strengthen them so that they give you a solid backbone and that you'll stand up for what's right.
I know we're getting into our coming up onto our 90-minute mark, Se-Sealth, but World Water Day declared by the United Nations is on March 22nd. And for those of us that are watching, please join us around the world. We'll be in Maui with our Hawaiian relatives. We'll be in Miami, where Scally Chucktanot is, doing a water blessing ceremony. We'll be in Minneapolis and Tsleil-Waututh and up at Cochiacan. And then Se-Sealth will be down at the grounds starting at 12 noon on Sunday, March 20th, 12 noon Pacific time. Jewell, why do we have to bless and be thankful for our water?
Well, you know, most of the people that are in dry areas, you know, they automatically remember that you got to be really grateful for water, because your body's 78% water, but it's a part of life, you know. And years ago, we brought Dr. Emoto from Japan to Lummi, and you ought to look up his book. He's gone now, but his family keeps his foundation going. He was a healer. He believed in the spirituality of water. You know, and he produced a book called The Power of Water. You ought to look it up. It's amazing. And water, they showed a picture of the earth to water. And it formed the crystals of love. Water loves the earth. And they said that, he said that water, he proved scientifically that water wants to be appreciated more than it wants to be loved. And so they took water samples from Tibetan temples, and the crystals formed enlightened doorways. And they took water from coming out of the pools of mountains. It formed these beautiful crystals like snowflakes, transparent snowflakes. They took water from near cities where man has contaminated, and the water structure, molecular structure, broke down into a kind of a slimy goo. You know, so water has negative ions, and negative ions help counterbalance positive ions that will lead to cancer and stress in your body. And so if you ever went bathing in the ice cold waters of the mountain, you could feel those neg ions as they interact with your body. And it's really refreshing and empowering, you know. But those sites are all being destroyed by clear cuts, you know, improper forest practices. And the water is losing its neg ion balance when they dam up the rivers and they kill the flow of the waters. Water needs to flow over the earth. The earth has a negative charge, and it renews the neg ion charge of the water. But when you block it up, like dam it up, you kill it. You know, and you don't think that way. You know, my understanding is that water is a living thing, the river is a living being, you know, and I was really happy that we're able to bring Dr. Emoto here. And even though we had to use an interpreter, we were fortunate because when he came to the United States before, he was mistreated and he said he'd never come back. But he came back because the Lummi Nation. And so that was just a couple of years before he passed on. But, you know, we've had those ceremonies. Lummi used to have water ceremonies. We used to appreciate our water. And see, a lot of communities all across Indian country, they respected the fire, the air, the water, the earth, you know, as part of our cultural awareness, you know, a part of who we are as beings. So we have to respect all of that, you know, and I'm glad that we're going to do that ceremony. And it doesn't take much, but as long as we do it in unity, you know, and as long as we remember there's a greater power than us, and we should appreciate that. This world was created for us, but we were never given the right to destroy it, to poison it, to contaminate it, to overuse it. You're supposed to take only what you need, but you know, everything's owned by multi-billionaires now. The little people don't matter to them, you know, and so we have to continue to believe that we deserve to have not only respect, but we deserve to teach the right to teach our children how to respect air, water, and the earth and fire. Those are the four symbols of the four directions. It's our duty, you know, and so this is one ceremony. And I'm glad because the future generations are facing a water shortage, you know, and there's new technology. You can create water out of air, but you don't have the colloidal minerals in it that makes it healthy. You only get those when water flows over the earth.
Our guest has been Se-Sealth, younger than Seattle. Jewell, we want to continue this conversation. Thank you so much. We do apologize for being an hour late, but we're just starting our new series, Lummi Elders Speak. We're live at 5 every Wednesday, right here at Freddie Lane Live. And don't forget to join us with our Tokatai TV this weekend on Sunday. We will have our World Water Blessing Ceremonies. We're inviting everyone to hashtag World Water Day. And if you feel moved to have your own ceremony, your own gathering, there's no wrong way to do this World Water Blessing Day. We got to give thanks for what we have. Appreciate the word, Se-Sealth. Look forward to seeing more about the totem pole journey coming up, and really looking forward to standing with you down at the Stammish grounds again on Sunday, starting at 12 noon Pacific. We'll be in Maui. We'll go to Miami and Minneapolis, up to Tsleil-Waututh and Cochiacan, and then right here at the Stammish grounds. From all of us here to our producers, Annette Martinez and Deb Cruz, I'm Caleb. We're going to close with a video that Se-Sealth and Sidki Kadam, his brother, stood in last night for him. And I knew that Jewell wouldn't feel too bad if his brother stood in. I know how you always yield to your brother, Jewell. And so, but this is Lummi Elders Speak. Thanks for joining us. Good night around the world. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Se-Sealth.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for allowing us to use that song. We're just praising and thanking you and asking for the healing of the land, Lord. It was brought to us back in 2013 by a pastor that came to our land. And he said that God sent him. And he says, he told me to tell you this. He said, it's really, really important to pray for the healing of the land. If the land can heal, the people heal.
It's him.
This is our mother. So we pray for the healing of the land, and our children and our people can heal. Lift up that spirit, that darkness that's been coming down upon us and trying to take away that light that burns within us and trying to put all that dark, ugly stuff in us. Drugs, alcohol, all of the ugly things of the world. That spiritual war that we need to get prayed up every day and asking for guidance and understanding. So with the waters are crying, you know, all the homestead out there, you know, these are our relatives that live in this waters, you know. And I've spun around here, you know. It says, pray for us, you know, we're out here. So they're also grieving for their losses. You know, and as human beings, you know, these are our relatives and sisters. You're not alone.